We're live, Ella.
Uh-huh.
We're live. You say hi.
Hi.
You wave at the camera. Hey everybody, my name is Pat the Honey Guy. I'm a 8th generation beekeeper from the honey capital of Canada. This is Eleanor, my daughter. She's a 9th generation beekeeper. Mwah. Joining us today is my mother, Queen Bee Tracy. Today she's going to be showing us how to make chocolate pudding with honey. So here we go. Here's Tracy.
Hi, welcome everyone. So again, we're going to do a quick cooking class with Semino Honey Business, and it's an extremely easy recipe and has only 5 ingredients. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what you need first, because you might actually follow along and make it right now in your kitchen if you happen to have all these ingredients, and if you love chocolate pudding. So
You
what
say
you're
hi
going
to
to
Grandma.
need.
Hi.
Hi, sweetheart. Hi, baby.
Are you
So
going to follow?
Well, we'll follow along and watch her, okay?
so what you're going to need is you're going to need a blender or a magic bullet. You're going to need some cottage cheese, some cocoa, some honey, some vanilla, and some milk. So if you gather all of those, I'll be telling you the measurements and what they are again in a little bit as we go step by step, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences. I never make a recipe the way the cookbook or online tells me to. Sometimes I do and like it and keep it that way, but a lot of times I make changes. So as you'll see when I'm giving you this recipe, there are some changes based on the first time I had it, and I felt it needed some tweaking. So first off, I'm just going to show you as I'm talking here. So I hope you can see the cottage cheese. The cottage cheese, it's your preference. It can be 1, 2, or 3% milk fat. That's totally up to you. And it's 1 cup cottage cheese, the wet cottage cheese, not the dry curds. If you were to use the dry curds, you would probably then have to use a lot of milk in this recipe to make it runny, because even with this wet curds, it is a very thick mousse without adding milk to the recipe. Okay. So hopefully there's no questions about cottage cheese. It doesn't matter what brand. I used Dairyland last time, and that's a lot wetter than I found the Foremost brand. And if you're watching from the States, there's probably even other brands, because those are both Canadian brands, that you're using. So it's totally up to you. It's your preference on your cottage cheese. Okay, so moving on, it's going to be the cocoa. I'm just going to move the magic bullet to the back here, because we're not going to even be using that right now. Okay, so here's cocoa. So we see the spelling is cocoa there, but here it's cacao. It's pronounced differently. So there's a difference there. So again, totally your preference on what you want. The cocoa itself is it's different because it is processed from roasted cacao bean. Okay, and then there's usually this one is pure, but there is brands out there that have a lot of sugar added and additives. And then the cacao is raw form of the cacao bean. It's not roasted, no additives. It's nutritionally dense. And I'm actually going to read you on the back of the package here, right there. It says, cacao powder is full of minerals, including magnesium, copper, manganese, calcium, sulfur, zinc, and iron. It contains essential heart healthy fats and antioxidant rich flavonoids. Um, it, is, it is one of the richest sources of antioxidants found in nature. It helps promote overall cardiovascular health and longevity by helping the body to naturally lower blood pressure. So there's a lot going on in there. So I've today I made it with just the cocoa and not the cacao. I made it with cacao last time, and it was a little rich tasting. And I also had milk in the recipe, so it was a very thick mousse. It was not a pudding, and we're trying to aim for pudding today. So the next thing is your honey. Now, this is the feature ingredient of why I chose this recipe. And some people still are a little confused on the different types of honey. So I'm going to do a close-up of the 3 types that you can possibly use in this recipe. I mean, you can obviously use flavored honeys too if you really wanted to. This recipe calls for just straight honey. It actually does also call for honey or maple syrup, but I'm a beekeeper and I chose to do it with honey, so I have not experimented and tried it with the maple syrup, but I mean, if that's your preference, you certainly can. The cottage cheese, just to back up, was 1 cup of cottage cheese, and the cocoa is 1/4 of a cup, which is 4 tablespoons. That's the equivalent. So if you're using a tablespoon instead of a cup, that's your cocoa. And now the honey is going to be 1/2 a cup. And again, the original recipe is only 1/4 of a cup, but I like sweet. And so I made it sweeter, and I'm using 1/2 a cup instead of the 1/4 of a cup. Yeah, and then the 2 types of honey that I would recommend for this is creamed honey in the blender with your cottage cheese and or runny honey. So we're using raw natural honey. So honey crystallizes naturally. You can buy liquid honey in the grocery store, which has been processed and there's chemicals added. So we're not going with that. We're just taking honey. I'll just show you here. So this is creamed honey. This is runny honey in the middle. And when runny honey crystallizes, it looks like this. So here's your crystallized honey, and it's not pourable. The runny honey is pourable, and in order, if this solidifies to be crystallized, you just put this in a pot of hot water, and the heat will dissolve the honey that you can pour off runny. Okay, and this is sponsored by Semino Honey Business. That's whose honey we're using. And creamed honey, as you can see, is kind of runny, but it's thick. So it's a blend of a small amount of runny honey with a large amount of crystallized honey, and it's processed in a blender, which I've shown some pictures on school to, and my husband has done it too, to show the creamer process, and so how you put liquid honey into this cream seed of either being some creamed honey left behind and or crystallized honey, hard honey. So yeah, so the preference for this is, like I showed you, I would use the creamed honey, or I would use, the runny honey, not the crystallized. If you do have crystallized in your cupboard, like I said, heat it to make it runny so that you can pour it off and put it in this recipe. Okay, and the last thing is vanilla. Now again, with the vanilla, I'll show you the vanilla. Okay, so this one is artificial vanilla. And again, it's your preference. This is actually all I had in my house because I've used up my real vanilla. The difference on that is your vanilla extract is the real thing, and the imitation vanilla isn't, even produced from the plant itself. It is flavored with synthetic valine, which the lab produced version of the chemical compound that occurs naturally in the real vanilla. So that's just, again, your preference. Choose what you want to use for that. And that's 1 teaspoon that we're using of that. And lastly, as I mentioned, when I did this before, it was extremely thick, and today I want it to be a little bit runnier. So I'm adding some milk. So I've chosen, and I played around with this amount, and too much makes it too runny, not enough, it's still too thick like mousse. So what I found that I liked, my preference was 2 tablespoons of milk. So on the table here, I've got my cocoa, my cottage cheese. This is vanilla and milk in the same measuring cup. And then I have my honey poured separately here. You can use your cottage cheese measuring cup and then put your honey in the same cottage cheese one. You want to keep your cocoa a different measuring cup because you don't want it to, or put it in first to the blender, I suppose. I don't think that would be a good idea, though. It's probably best to have your cottage cheese in there so it doesn't just stick at the bottom and clump up. But yeah, so that's what you're going to stick in the blender. So you're going to stick it in your blender. I'm going to come over here to the other part of the kitchen. And you're going to, I'm not going to turn the blender on because I figured it would be too noisy for this video. So I already did it prior to signing on live. So you would just put all your ingredients in your blender. And it doesn't matter. You can use, like I said, a magic bullet because it's not very much cottage cheese, so it would fit in a magic bullet. But it's going to be a creamy consistency like that. Okay, so you're going to use your spatula as it's like stop it while it's blending and push the ingredients down into the blender and just keep repeating until you do get creamy. If you turn it off too quickly, you will end up with some little tiny white chunks of the cottage cheese in there, which is harmless. I mean, it affects the consistency of the pudding. You want it to be nice and creamy. And so yeah, you're going to blend it, and then you're going to take your, I don't know if you can see me, but you're going to take it out and you're going to put it in a dish. And when you do that, then you're just going to take it to the fridge. And so you chill it before you eat it. I mean, it's really good right now. I've been eating it this morning, but you put it in the fridge. That's part of the instructions, is to chill it. And then when it comes out of the fridge, you certainly can top it with whipped cream or eat it plain or sprinkle it with chocolate chips or whatever you want to do with it, cocoa nibs, something like that. But I am just going to grab my husband now. Dennis, are you in the house? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get him to join us here. Get him to say hi on camera first. Whoops, I guess I'm holding it the wrong way. So he is going to taste test this. So I have made, I've got two that were in the fridge earlier. They've chilled. And there they are there. And we're going to take our little hearts out of there. This is Valentine's Day, so, and I'm wearing pink just for that reason. But yeah, we are going to, cheers. And we're going to give it a taste and see what we think. He likes this one better. Yes, so use milk. That's my tip. Use more honey because it's sweeter, and use milk so that it's creamier. And blend it a lot longer than I did the first time too, so that there's no chunks. So that's it. That's cooking with cinnamon honey. That is making chocolate pudding. Like I said, you can make it chocolate mousse if you don't add milk and not as much honey. It would be really, really thick like we had done before. And yeah, so is there any questions at all? Tree?
Ella, did you have any questions for Grandma about making chocolate pudding with honey?
Yeah.
What question did you have?
I got it, and also this.
Yeah, you were taking notes, eh? She was taking notes.
Oh, I see. Good job. Yeah. So another, what's that, sweetheart?
Just, you're good.
Okay. So another thing too, when playing around with chocolate pudding recipes, I also came across some other ones which are very similar and just as easy to make. You need a blender and a couple of ingredients with the honey, of course. And we'll post this video that we just, or the ingredients from the video that we just did on school.com/bees. That's where you'll find the recipe that Patrice will put up and post for us in a little bit here. The recipes, though, that I came up with or found, other ones I found, was using ripe avocados. So I want to try this because I love avocados. So it's 2 ripe avocados, 4 tablespoons, which again is a quarter of a cup. They're the same thing, of cocoa powder or cacao, honey. Again, this one says or maple syrup, and that's 4 tablespoons or a quarter of a cup. And then water or milk to cover, which they say approximately half a cup. So again, it would be experimenting with that to see, and how big your avocados are too, because sometimes you could have really small ones or the bigger ones. And vanilla also 1 teaspoon. Again, blend it, chill it, yummy. Then we have another one that I was actually looking up egg recipes because we sell eggs, and I'm making, gathering up some egg recipes for my clients. And so this one has 6 cooked scrambled eggs, and the cocoa powder or cacao powder, whichever you want to choose, a half a cup, and then honey or maple syrup again. And this one says 2 tablespoons, and then half a cup to 1 cup milk. So you're playing around with it for your own consistency of how thick you want this recipe to be. And also to give the blender a break, because if it's too thick, it's really hard. The blender's working really hard to churn up what you've put in there. And again, this one you blend, you chill it, and there's chocolate pudding with honey in again. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and we will be doing this again next month. There's St. Patty's Day in March, so perhaps we'll come up with some kind of theme for that.
Ella did have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
When can we make this?
Did
Sorry,
you hear?
sweetheart? No, I
Say
didn't
it
hear.
again.
When can we make this?
We're going to make it as soon as I come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to come visit again, and we'll make it then. It's easy to make. Oh,
And
there's
that's why
Grandpa.
I got this.
Oh, yeah.
Ella had Valentine's Day at school today, so she's all excited to show off all her cool stuff she got.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, Grandpa and I just had Valentine's Day pudding, chocolate pudding. Yummy, yummy.
Yeah, we watched her make it. It was pretty cool, hey?
Yeah, this how we this how I doggies.
She's taking notes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for us today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching us. Yes, join us at school.com/bees. We have a call like this every week where we do something fun. We learn about bees or put together a recipe. I think we have a candle making special. We got a plan to come up soon. And then, like Tracy said, all of the recipes, ingredients, all that stuff is shared there as well. So come check us out. Let us know you saw the video in the community. Leave a comment down below. Let us know if there's something else you'd like to see as well. And we'll see you next time. Do you have anything to say to everybody? Can you say bye?
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, sweetheart. See ya.